Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube tip and topic page here at Moral Kids. We're just going to talk to you briefly about an important subject matter that's dear to our heart. Again, here at Moral Kids, we believe in relational parenting versus functional parenting. Of course, we want to reach that heart of the child where behavior counts the most.
Yeah, so today we're going to do a video about how to help your children receive the N-word.
Oh man, the N-word.
The N-word.
No.
N-O.
Disappointment.
Kids hate hearing that word.
Yes.
And so we just want to give you 2 tips that can help your child receive the word no. All right, tip number 1. Number one is practicing it with your kids. See, because we talk about all the time how kids are, they thrive off of routine and practice. And so when we talk about training a child, we talk about actually doing practice as well. I mean, what does your children's basketball team do or their soccer team do? They have practices.
I agree.
And those practices help them to become better at their craft. So practicing with your kids is actually a good tip. Helping them to receive the word no. So having them ask for things and then you tell them no, and just having them get used to being told no and having them being used to being disappointed and working through how to deal with that.
What's a good example of that? Like at Target, let's say for instance they really want you to purchase this toy. How do we deal with that disappointment? Tears swelling up in their eyes, and you don't want to be embarrassed in the store, and like you don't want to seem like you're a bad parent, but you're trying to train your child how to deal with disappointment. So
Yes.
how would they handle that scenario?
So here's the key to that. So here's another tip. Let me throw that in there.
I'll throw it in there. I'm
Let
gonna
me
catch
throw
it.
this one in, okay? All right, so another tip with that is
Uh-huh.
you actually want to practice in private before you practice in public.
Wow.
So being in that situation where the kid's being told no and you're at the store and so you can perceive that there's going to be a big meltdown situation. Well, if they've already practiced
In
how
expectation.
to deal with that before we're out in the public scene and having to make a scene, they'll be used to when you say no. They'll start getting used to it and know how to respond. So that actually brings me to tip number 3.
Hold on, before you get to tip number 3, I can attest to that. As a matter of fact, a month ago, of course, our youngest daughter is Harmony. She's 5, and she think Dad is, Daddy Warbucks from Little Orphan Annie. And she thinks that every time I go to the store, I have to buy her something, whether it's a toy, a bag of chips, some candy. And my worst times I had with her was when I didn't give her expectation. And my best times I had with her when I practiced it and I gave her expectation. Before we even, don't tell them when you enter the store. Tell them when you're leaving the home or at least in the car. Because once you get to that place, they'll begin to get excited and then they'll become double-minded and not focus on what you're saying. So one time I told her, I said, Harmony, we're on our way to Kroger's. And we may look at the toys, but we're not purchasing any toys. Maybe next time. And don't you know, lo and behold, when we got there, we went to the toy section and she said, Daddy, we'll get that next time or we'll look at it next time. It actually works. But practice makes perfect, which goes into tip number 3. I want to hold the time.
Right. Tip number 3. You've actually kind of touched on it.
I'm sorry. I
Expectations.
apologize.
That's okay. Setting an expectation for kids. So giving them an expectation for when you're told no, this is how I'm expecting for you to respond. That actually works well as well. So not only are we going to practice with our kids, and not only are we going to practice at home before we actually do it in a public place.
Yes.
Have them start to have more success with it before we actually do it in the public place, but also setting the expectation. So like you set the expectation, before you guys actually went to the store, that was actually setting a plan in place so that they'll understand what is expected of them, and so that they can have that point of follow through.
Because kids, they are at a point of development. They are children that's soon to be teenagers, soon to be adults. But it's our jobs as parents to navigate those life journeys and those changes. Remember, we got to change what's on the inside before we can deal with anything on the outside. A lot of people think that, okay, we can just change the behavior and one thing you don't want to do is bribe your child, say, I'll get you this if you do that. You don't want to create that relationship dynamic. You want them to be a good child because good is being good and knowing good and to do good. So don't bribe your kids. Let's don't get into a reward system because there'll be more about their reward or the bribe than actually changing from the heart.
Yep.
So it's good, like you said, just like a clock, set those expectations beforehand and then watch the changes happen. Now, don't get disappointed if it doesn't happen overnight. You know, change doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen over time.
Yep. So there you have it. So stay tuned for more tips at moralkids.com.